name's Jackson Aide, and this is my record, Letters for Eliza. Hello again. My name is Jackson Aide, and I'm welcome to the show. I'm a songwriter based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Previously, I talked about the record fundamentally and its core, kind of how it came to life. This time, I'd like to unpack a little bit about the process of production and my process of going through songs and stuff like that and kind of getting the record to where it is, to where you guys are hearing it. So, prior to this project, I would typically my process starts just by writing as many songs as possible. And you're just I don't want to say you're like grasping at ideas out of thin air or reaching for something that doesn't exist, but you're kind of just trying to push an idea up a mountain each time and see if you can get to the top. And I think eventually the top of that mountain is just having a full-on song, front to back. And the production doesn't need to be there. You don't need to have drums. You could just write it on a piano. You could just write it on an acoustic guitar, a ukulele, however you do it. So that would be kind of my first step. And I sort of did that, but not really this time. I really had about 5 songs kind of tumbling around in my head, and I had the title, and I knew exactly that that was going to be the title immediately. And so I started putting them in here and demoing out these songs, the 5 that I have. And through that process, I kept on stumbling through more songs. And I think that was the kind of the kid in the sandbox, the fun enjoyment piece about it for me. Because previously, I would write as many songs as possible and then I would kind of hand them off. I mean, literally, that's what people are doing. They write songs, they're not too well versed in production, which I think every artist nowadays needs to be able to produce. That's just something that's like another tool in your belt. Saying that, I would hand these songs off. And just because someone can take them and kind of shape them into these beautiful masterpieces. I knew when I started this project that I did not want to do that. There was times where I was going to let 1 or 2 people in and exist inside of this space here and really kind of have at it. But that just never happened. And I'm grateful that it didn't happen, because I don't think the project really would have done itself its justice if I would have just brought someone in. It wouldn't have been as honest. And that's essentially what I wanted the record to be. And so from a production process standpoint, I needed everything I did regarding the record to be honest. I needed to write the songs, I needed to demo them, I needed to, produce them, go through that process, and I wanted to mix them, and then eventually I mastered them. And I knew I needed to do it. Again, something I had never really ventured down to the utmost degree. I never went from A to Z. There was always someone else kind of coming in, tinkering around with me. So first you take the ideas and you start putting them in here. And then along with that, more ideas came. And then through that process, you find sounds that you like, you find little tricks that you use, and you kind of start duplicating those things throughout songs. And I think that allows it to take shape to where it doesn't necessarily get too far dislocated from each other from a song-to-song perspective. If you can keep the color palette that you're using similar, I feel that it becomes more cohesive. And with it being more cohesive, I wanted it, that cohesiveness had the honesty already attached to it simply because I was doing it. Again, I said this before, I wanted to dare myself this little task. And so start with 5 songs, and I kind of ended up with somewhere between maybe 30, 35, 40, something like that. And I went through the process of all of them. And that's just sitting down, writing the song, and then putting it in. You could do an acoustic guitar, piano, maybe just electric guitar. And then I would start adding keys, drums, all of that. And it was interesting because some of these songs where they ended are so far from where they started. But also some of them are very similar. And that process, that underneath layer of honesty is really what I want to dig into, because the framework of the record is to be this earnest, vulnerable, imperfect thing of beauty. And I think that through the process of production and mixing and just engineering and tracking it right here inside of these 4 walls, that gave the process so much more meaning. Typically, if I'm packing things up and going to a studio and I can only be there for 2 hours, 3, 4 hours, there's a time limit on creativity. And I believe strongly, as soon as you start doing that to yourself as an artist, you're putting a time frame on it. You've lost. Because you cannot timestamp creativity. It's happenstance. It just happened. Serendipity. And that's again how these songs came to life. Is that it was this free-flowing state that I was in, to where I knew I was going to do this, and it took me 2.5 years, the whole process, dude, just to upload the record to the distribution site. That's not even the artwork, and we'll get into that later. But the process was grueling, but also just there was so much growth within that, because I was figuring things out about myself and about these songs and about the soundscapes and the colors that I was using that I never knew before. And I feel that was the catalyst for this record and the production and the process behind it. I feel that process of production didn't feel like producing it. It just felt like making things that I love and things that sort of made me, happily dance around, smile, laugh, cry, all of that. And I had lost a little bit of those feelings when I was making other records and working on other songs. And I understood, and I think this is the biggest thing, I understood that I needed to get back to that place of being able to happily play in the sandbox again without any expectations. Because even when I started the project, I didn't know if I was going to be able to finish it. But I think that's the whole point of it. Not to set yourself up for failure, but just to see where it will take you. That's kind of life, Enjoy the journey. Don't try to premeditate your next step. Do what comes naturally. And that's essentially what I did with Letters for Eliza through the process of production. And